Efficiency versus karma. So I'm reading a book by Peter F. Drucker, the management guru. It's just a thin book. It's called Managing Oneself. And he raises a really illuminating point that kind of moved me, which is similar to what Gary Vaynerchuk says, which is that don't work on your weaknesses, work on your strengths. And basically the point he makes is that it takes less energy to go from very good to spectacular or excellence than it takes to go from poor to mediocre. And you could think about this in the context of relationships also, that if you just surround yourself with people that are really congruent to you, Peter Drucker doesn't say this, but then you get much more out of it than if you try to take people that are not very good or congruent to you and make them more so. At best, you'll wind up at mediocre. And I think that's true, but I think it's balanced by what I'm going to call here karma. And I want to explain that a little bit. So, Joyce Meyer said that she was always running into people that felt like sandpaper were coming into her life because they were helping her smooth out her rough edges. The same is true with me. Like, I think that I've always been smart, cognitively or whatever. In terms of people skills, I've had to like more develop them. I'm not saying I was bad at the beginning, but just dealing with many different kinds of people didn't come as naturally to me. And I think becoming an entrepreneur has kind of, I feel like I have to sneeze. So um, just becoming an entrepreneur has really helped me a lot to deal with many different kinds of people because being an entrepreneur, you have to. Also, I ran for governor and you have to, interact with many different kinds of people. So I think that there's a balance between efficiency and karma. Karma, the idea that people come into your life to teach you lessons, that we all have to learn from each other. Some people call it soul contracts, like in the life after life type of terminology. And I think, again, there's a balance. There's a balance between just playing to your strengths and just working with people that are very congruent with you. I mean, in the extreme, if you do that, it turns into an echo chamber. Like people that just listen to MSNBC just reinforce their views. I'm not saying left or right because Fox News might be similar. If we exist in an echo chamber, then we just come to believe more and more what we already believe. If we surround ourselves with people that just think like us, there's a famous expression that says that whenever two people think exactly the same, one isn't necessary because I guess the idea is you're not learning anything. So it's not really adding value. I think that's what they mean by unnecessary. But the other thing too is that like if you just have like a total smorgasbord, and it's unfiltered, unstructured, then it's just chaos. So like in a company, you have to have some kind of value, some kind of culture, that imagine like if you had two sports teams playing each other and everybody on each team had a different uniform. You couldn't separate out who was on which team. So there has to be some congruence. There has to be like some commonality, but it can't be like so much that everything just becomes like a yes person. So in the short term, it's more efficient to have everybody just thinking the same and doing the same. In the long term, you need some of that. You need people that have similar values and similar culture, but you also need a little bit of expansion. Uh, you need like Joyce Meyer said, you need a few people that are like sandpaper to you, so that you can expand your capabilities. It doesn't mean just working on your weaknesses. I'm trying to find the right language to say this. So if I had to talk to Peter Drucker and Gary Vaynerchuk, it says just triple down on your strengths. Triple down on your strengths, but 1.5 times on your weaknesses, because primarily you want to work on your strengths because that's going to get you to where you want faster, but your weaknesses can become a fatal flaw. Sometimes, like if your people skills aren't good or if there's something else that you're really, really bad at, so even if it's going to take you much more energy to even become mediocre at it might save your relationship, might save your company, might save your family, as opposed to being very poor. So It's hard to put a fixed percentage on it, but I'm just taking numbers out of thin air. Maybe spend 75% of the time on your strengths and 25% of the time on your weaknesses. Strengths are more important than weaknesses, but people that just ignore weaknesses altogether can run into problems as well.